Hello everyone and welcome to another video. In this video, we are covering the build process of a very intricate Temp-Cast. Each Temp-Cast masonry heater we do comes with its challenges and advantages, making for a unique experience every time. In this video, we are going to show you some of the processes behind the project and take you behind the scenes. Let's get into it. This heater has an incredible design. Not only does this heater have a bake oven, but it will also display a heated bench and a wood storage box. As the finishing touch, this heater will be wrapped in a beautiful full bed stone veneer. We begin by working on the foundation. Sometimes we have to do a little extra work on the floor where the heater will be. It was already laid out for us, which was great, and we filled in the holes with chunks of rock and gravel that we mortared in. Alright, so here we are starting to work on the core kit. Building the heater core is the first step of our process, and it's also one of the quickest segments of this fireplace project. The core generally takes us around 6 hours to complete. Most of the parts are numbered and keyed, so it comes together pretty quickly. The core kit comes with a refractory mortar to mortar the parts of the core together. Prior to coming up with our mortar gun, we used to apply the mortar with a trowel, which was a messy process because of the nature of refractory mortar being so wet and slippery. Eventually we came up with the idea of using a caulking gun, which we now sell, and this makes applying the refractory mortar extremely easy. When we get up to around bake oven height, we tend to assess the work we've done so far. We check to make sure the core is level, strap tight the first course over the firebox, and wipe the mortar out of the joints on the outside. This is also the time where we have to clean excess mud out of the firebox. Someone has to squeeze into the box with a sponge and mop up all the extra mortar. As we get towards the top, it gets harder to set the pieces. Some of the parts that go high up are quite heavy. We have 2 people on benches to place these stones when we get close to the top of the heater. Alright, time to prep the core for the downdraft channels. We cut strips of insulation about 2 inches wide and caulk them to the 4 corners of the heater core. This serves as a spacer between the core trunk and the downdraft channels. If we were doing a top vent heater build, we would add 2 layers of insulation because we need more volume inside the channels. These are part of the path of flue gases as they travel down the heater, transferring their heat to the stone before heading out to the bench. We cut some holes into a couple of the downdraft channel pieces, as you can see here. These will continue the flue gas passage through the heated bench and into the chimney. We put on the top stones and we leave it for now, but this is only part of the sealing process that will go into the top. The heater core is complete. Now we wrap it in cardboard. We do this to keep a little space between the core and the external stone wrap. The heater will have to contract and expand as it heats up to temperatures of 1500 degrees or more in the firebox. If there was no breathing room for the core, it would push against the stone and could crack it. When the core reaches its high temperatures during a fire, the cardboard, being unable to combust in its conditions, will simply turn to ash and fall down into the channels, leaving behind enough space for the core to move. After applying the cardboard, we like to place in the bake oven trim plate. We cut out the cardboard that was sitting over the bake oven hole and attach the trim plate. The bake oven door goes on top of the trim plate, but we add it as a last step so that we don't get the bake oven dirty as we work. We also attach the firebox door here. It's always a little tricky working around this door, even though we need it to be there so we can lay stones around it. We have to be careful to keep it clean. Sometimes we cover it in cardboard or painter's plastic, and sometimes we clean it as we go. Alright, now for the heated bench. The flue gases will travel around the fireplace and into the bench via the chimney flue pipes we are placing now. We cut holes in the sides of some of the pipes to create cleanouts. The gases will transfer their heat into the bench, and then continue through the pipes and exit through the chimney on the left side of the heater. Alright, it's time to get started on the stone. The stones were beautiful, and a pleasure and a pain to work with. The difficulty was that the stones were generally uneven, some tapering from 3 inches thick to 5 inches thick, and others starting at 2 inches wide ended at 5 inches wide. We had to do a lot of cutting, stone dressing, and planning in order to make each stone fit. It was like building a puzzle, except we were designing all the pieces as we put it together. It was a challenge to keep our floor space clean enough to keep working. We covered the floor in plywood to prevent damage to the finished concrete floor, and also swept up each day. You need to be careful so that you don't wind up kicking a lot of masonry dust into the air. Ultimately, we just do our best. and we make sure the ground is clean at the end of each day and even throughout the day as we work. As we worked our way up, we finished the bench and we put the slabs on top. We set them, leveled them in, and caulked up the joints after we finished the heater as a finishing touch. Alright, we are high enough to start working on the wood box and the stones that will surround the door. This means a lot of picking and choosing and strategizing over where stones go. In the process, we found an extremely unique stone with a large knot in the stone pile, and we were so delighted with it that we put it into the wood box to start off. It really adds character to the fireplace. Another stone we found looked like it had waves in it, but it was too visually busy, and so we placed it inside the wood box rather out of the way. We used stone chips and small rocks to fill in the gaps between the stones we placed, and these also add a lot of fun personality to the exterior. As we got close to the arch over the fireplace, we began talking about what we wanted to do for it. We could try and arch several small stones over the top, but we came up with a more creative idea. We had these simply massive stones outside, some about 4 feet long and several inches thick. It took us a long time and a lot of careful measurement, but finally we took one of these massive stones and we split it in half. Not widthwise, but lengthwise, so it was half as thick as it had been when we started. We cut the arch into the piece we wanted, and we hauled it in and mortared it to the cardboard, creating an arch with just one stone. Then we hit chimney height, and we started work on cutting a hole in the roof. The ceiling was very high up, but thanks to the machine the owners had on site, it was fairly easy to reach. This was the easiest roof we have ever done. Normally, we have to get into an attic or a tight crawl space in order to cut the hole in the roof, and then we have to cut another hole into the attic to get the pipe through. Here, there was no attic because the roof was just a single SIP panel. We could just cut one hole, and then we were done with that process. The progress on the stonework continues, but it's not just stonework. We stuff mud down the backs of each stone, filling up all airspace for the best heat transfer into the exterior stone. Also, we trimmed back the visible joints between the stones to create the final effect of the exterior. The stone wrap got higher and higher, and we placed the stone slabs on top of the wood storage box and the chimney box, completing them. Then we started talking about what to do for the bake oven arch. We thought about doing the small stones over the top, but decided to take the same route as the Firebox arch. We found a colossal stone that would suit the purpose, and we chiseled it lengthwise like we did the other, and also carved out the arch for a chisel-faced arch over the bake oven. This piece came out extremely textured, and it looked incredible. Eventually we reached the summit after 3 or 4 days of work. Once we were high enough with the stone wrap, we sealed up the top. We first put down a blanket of insulation into the cavity, and then we covered it in a few inches of regular brick or block mortar. Finally, we added the capstones and finished the joints. We had exactly enough mortar left on the mudboards to finish the joints without mixing another bag, but it took a little economizing. We had plenty of excess mortar in the stone joints that needed to be trimmed anyway, and between the excess mortar and the little we had left on the mudboards, we completed the joints and finished the job. The further we went with this heater, the more beautiful it looked. The stones were hard to work with, but absolutely satisfying and worth the effort. We cleaned the chimney on the last day, did our cleanup, and added some final details to the heater. And that's it. The heater is done, and it looks wonderful. Please like and comment if you liked this video. If you want to learn more about Temp-Cast masonry heaters and the kits we sell, you can find that information at tempcast.com, and we'll leave a link in the description. Well, we hope to see you again soon with another project. In the meantime, we hope you have a good day.